Yo, 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 what's going on? It's Terrell, Hall of Fame, D-Line, and this is Bully Rants. I forgot some of my little labels there. Um, I'll tell you what, people have been asking me about this for a while, and I'm just going to go into it, and it's the Gotti line thing. What happened to Gotti? What do I think about Gotti? And I'm just going to be honest with y'all, man. The Gotti that you see today is not Gotti. Notorious Juan Gotti, Monster J. Those are of course my two favorite dogs from the Gotti line family. It was a great group of dogs, a great group of guys at one point in time, and they really did. They were trailblazers. They made a lot of great things happen. They put some great breedings together, and they had the biggest dogs, the most muscular dogs. Sometimes not always the greatest conformation. I think the Edge family took the conformation titles, but when it came to monsters, Gotti was the winners at all phases. And I mean, what can you say? Gotti is probably the best example of what selling out can do to a beautiful line of dogs, due to a beautiful breed. And I think Gotti symbolizes everything is wrong with our community right now. Like I say, I greatly respected Gotti. I had Gotti blood. I had some dogs off of 21 Blackjack. I had some of the good stuff, and none of these dogs were non-functional. The matter of fact, the boy that I had off of 21 Blackjack was a 100-pound boy, beautiful boy, super wide chest. He had no problem going out 90-degree days, and he would be out in the yard still messing around. And he was black, and I just chose to not use him because of my program, but it was nothing wrong with the dog. And I've seen many dogs like that, to get to the point when, excuse me, when things got bad is when trends changed. People started seeing shorter dogs. People wanted more money for certain dogs. People were getting more money for certain dogs. And when you have that many changes and you see people starting to do big things as far as financial reasons go or whatever, then you start to get an idea that maybe things are going to the left. And that's exactly what happened. With the Gotti line family, the dogs that you see now that represent Gotti and stuff, they're nothing like what the old Gotti dogs were. Nothing. The old Gotti dogs, like I say, were very big. They were, descendants of the gray line blood. Very big dogs. Everybody wanted a 100-pound dog. Gotti line was one of the best places where you could get a 100-pound dog. And, I would say back in the 2007 era, that era when we started seeing shorter dogs, you had Miyagi come up. You had Ed Shepherd, who was already a fixture in Gotti line after having 21 Blackjack, come along with Dax. And these were smaller dogs. And smaller was starting to be a thing. Even at that time, we weren't talking about micro, but the term exotic was already being used. The super pockets, dog, everybody aiming to have a 12 to 13-inch dog, when it was crazy because 14 inches was seemed like the shortest thing in the world back at that time. Well, genetics don't work like that. I'm going to be honest with y'all. Genetics just don't work like that. You don't go from a 21, 22-inch dog, 100 plus pounds, to a 12-inch dog in any couple generations. As a matter of fact, in order for that to happen, it would be a great amount of dwarfism involved in making these dogs smaller. A breed, any species, just doesn't change like that in a few years. So, what we start to see happen is that the Gotti history was pretty much erased. The big dogs, Black Ace, all those dogs that 21 Blackjack, of course, like I said, but all those dogs that I personally loved that were big dogs and just impressive, just physical monsters. White Rhino wasn't my cup of tea, but he sort of represented. But to see where it came to is that basically what happened to Gotti line is that a bunch of mixing went on. In order for you to change a breed like that, it had to take in, a lot of smaller breeds. A lot of French bulldogs were added, obviously. English bulldogs were added. Excuse me. There were traits from the Alapaha that I could see visibly in the dogs, like how some dogs who are labeled Gotti line dogs started popping up with Merle patterns. The tick was always a part of the Gotti line family, and that's something else to be debated. But you started to see the Merle pattern come up in the Gotti line dogs. You started to see a lot of traits that weren't in the Gotti dogs before. You saw a heavier presence of the Champagne dogs that come out. And a lot of these traits were from other breeds. And of course, the most notable thing we had is we went from a point in time where the Gotti family, I think it was Legend, where they were bragging that this dog was 130 pounds, which he very well may have been. They started bragging on dogs that were 40-something pounds and tiny. And if you looked at this pedigree, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that a 120-pound dog doesn't make a 40-pound little runt. That's not a normal thing. So as the trends got bigger, the money got bigger, more and more breeding of this way. Unfortunately, with dogs, it only takes excuse me. It only takes about a 5 or 6 year span to really, really eliminate a dog. And this is what we've seen from Gotti. Rich sort of went and chilled out. He wasn't as involved with the Gotti family and I think the Gotti family started to be in a bunch of different branches, but you just started to see it turn into an exotic micro world of we're going to use the name Gotti because that's what we're hanging our papers off of. But the Gotti dogs sort of disappeared with just the whole thing of moving towards the exotic movement. And it's not, for me, I'm not trying to bash them, but if you look at most of the exotic dogs and you look at a lot of where it comes from, most of them claim to originate from Gotti line. A lot of them say, "Oh, it's Gotti this, it's Gotti that," and it was although the name exotic was originated out here on the East Coast, I think was it Garden State Bullies that first started calling the dogs exotics, but although that was the case, truly what was going on and what was happening is that it was the West Coast that the exotic micro movement had took by storm, and when it took it by storm, it was like a plague. It just pretty much eliminated all of the big dogs. So, today, if you search long and hard, you'll be hard-pressed to find the original look of Gotti. You'll be hard-pressed to find dogs that look like Gotti, even with the size of Gotti, even any of the characteristics of Gotti that are actually true Gotti line dogs. The last, decade pretty much has made it almost permanent that the Gotti line dogs will not return. And, there'll be some people that say, I still got Gotti and my dogs are still big, and you do have a few out there. But, the Gotti line was just like Edge. It was a movement going forward that needed to materialize. All the ingredients were there. All the hype was there. It was building. And then the exotic / micro pocket movement really, really just killed it all the way together. And the thing I think that truly is the difference between Gotti and Edge is that Edge would have been killed the same way because, in my honest opinion, Edge was sold out the same way by Dave. Looking towards his was just more of the extreme dogs. He went with the more agile bulldog and watched the dog turn into a bulldog, and let's call it something else, where it didn't have, as he used to always say, a pit bull on steroids look. But the biggest difference is that in the Edge family, you had, myself and my crew, which is the D-Line Top Shelf crew. Then you had Oscar Gomez, with his guys out there, and you had a lot of other breeders who were a part of the Elite Edge who actually carried the tradition on, and some that was outside of it, like Team Paco with Marco Suarez. You had the Remy Line family. So what you had is, although the base has sold itself out, you still came in and you had good quality dogs that still fit the old Edge standard and the American Bully standard. Whereas, unfortunately, Gotti line didn't have that happen. If you look for descendants of Monster, if you look for descendants of Juan Gotti, you'll see now that those dogs are claimed to be like these little exotic dogs. And in closing, I do want to say, with all due respect to Gotti, it does sadden me because I was a fan of Gotti. I felt like that they had the most incredible dogs, on the face of the earth. That's why we wanted to mix our dogs with their dogs, the Edge dogs to the Gottis, because it made great. We liked our look because it was prettier and it was cleaner, but their dogs were able to put an amount of muscle on the frame that was just unbelievable, you know, and they still were functional. They could still go outside and run around. And it is a tragedy, you know, that movement didn't get to carry itself out and turned into what it is. And honestly, what it is now is, to me, is one of the ugliest movements in dog history, you know, that, you know, we just breed, lie, and pretty much get over on the community. And it has been like a plague, a cancer that has pretty much destroyed our community and our ability to have healthy dogs, you know. I'm not trying to, a little stupid fly, but I'm not trying to be too hard on Gotti. I'm just being realistic with you. And if anybody wants to challenge me on that and you want to find something better to, you know, a better example of Gotti dogs, and you want to tell me I'm wrong, I'm all for it. And I hope that some people can prove to me that there's still some real deal Gotti dogs out there. But I do know the history, and the history is that what we know from the exotic movement is primarily from the Gotti movement. And you know, I had to say it's shameful and it's sad, because we lost some great, you know, we lost some great blood and some great dogs along the way. And now we stuck with these little things that we sit on tables that can't breathe and live for 8 months and fall over and die. So, you know, that's my thing on Gotti, man. I wish I could have been more positive, but the positive note is they were great when they were great. I give them all the credit in the world, and I just hate that they're not around like they used to be. If you out there, OG original Gotti line members who wasn't taking no shit and still making them real bullies, man, put that shit back out there, man. We could all use some of that. The American bully community could use some of that, and I'm sure some of you guys got that real blood that you didn't mess with. But until next time, man, I'll holler at y'all later. Much love. Peace.